Welcome back to season 2 of Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. I am your host, Marcia Blaine, a licensed professional counselor, a clinical hypnotherapist, an author, motivator, and life coach. Join us during the season as we begin to normalize freedom. Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. Welcome back to Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. You know what? We're going to talk about sex tonight. Yes, let's talk about sex. You know that taboo subject that people don't want to talk about. If we have time, we may even explore toys and stuff like that. I know it's not on my subject list, but we're going to get into it. I have the honor and privilege to have my guest, Tiffany Taylor, a licensed clinical social worker, a BCD. She is a sex therapist, a motivational speaker, and the owner and founder of Soul Solutions Therapeutic Services, LLC. She resides in McDonough, Georgia. She's currently in another state because, get this, y'all, she is still active duty reserve, still serving her country while also assisting others with their mental wellness. Tiffany graduated with her bachelor's from Florida, University of Florida. She has a master's in social work from Clark Atlanta University. It is actually the number 1 social work school in this country. A lot of people
Yay.
don't realize that, but
Yes.
Clark Atlanta, when you want your social work degree, get to Clark Atlanta. I'm telling you, that is the number 1 program across the country. No competition, none of that. Just so that you know that. She has 15 years of clinical experience in social work with a primary focus in mental health, medical, and forensic social work. Again, she is a behavioral health officer serving in the United States Army Reserves. Her team was deployed to Southwest Asia. Guess what, y'all? She serviced over 7,000 soldiers with her and her teams, ensuring their mental wealth and emotional well being. After she returned from Asia, she opened her private practice here in Henry County, and she provides individual, family, and couple therapy, specializing with working with women of sexual trauma, helping them to rebuild their self esteem, reconnecting with their sensuality, and improving their overall mental wellness. She takes great pride in creating a safe environment. Listen, when you go through sexual trauma, or even when you've been bogged down with myths about sexuality, sexual awareness, you need a safe space to talk about all that stuff. So Tiffany certainly provides that for the community. Now, she doesn't look like it, but she is the mother of a 10-year-old daughter who is athletic and artistically inclined. She's engaged, waiting for her nuptials to come around. That's always a wonderful time. But on top of the busyness of her life, she is also giving back to the community by serving on the board of directors of National Association for Social Work in Georgia, as well as being a part of the National Association of Black Social Workers. Tiffany, welcome and thank you for saying
Oh, thank
yes. I'm
you.
super excited.
I'm
Super
honored. Thank you
excited.
for having me. Thank you.
You're so very welcome. I know that sex is a topic, we're more free about it now. I'm a
Yes.
Gen Xer. It was all the myths that, oh, don't talk about sex. You got to be a bad girl. If you talk about sex, you think about sex, you try to self please and all that kind of stuff. We're going to break some of those myths down tonight. And I'm super excited to have you here. So
Mhm.
let me ask you, what made you venture into the topic, that niche of sex therapy?
Well, I I feel like most of us that are in this helping field, right? We get into this field because of some personal experience that we had, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would say two pivotal things happened in my life. I was molested when I was younger. So I always knew that I wanted to work with people or people who had experienced that.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got out of grad school, I became a forensic social worker and being like the first responder for children at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta,
Wow,
working with
nice.
those kids who had been abused. So that
Mm.
was tough, right?
Yeah.
When I talk about it, people are like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you did that." And it's hard, right? And those forensic interviews, I was like, I don't know. It was too much for me.
It was very
So
triggering.
yeah.
Mhm.
So it wasn't my perhaps calling in that way of serving. So I just started doing more research in the counseling aspect of it. Um,
Mhm.
I also went through a divorce, and through that divorce, I felt like my lady parts had died. I was
Mm.
uninterested in sex. And after that divorce, I went out on just finding myself, of course, through
Mhm.
counseling and just rediscovering myself and my body. And that's how I really, I guess, the aspect of sex education, right? Being a
Mhm.
educator, sex coach merged
Mm.
together with sex therapy. So that's
Mhm.
the personal story of how I
Part
got
of it.
involved. But
Mhm.
I have always, I think, been a little bit interested in it.
Mhm.
I was that the friend in college that gave advice about different things. So I think there's always been an interest, but I really, really started taking it seriously about 3 years ago, where sex therapy isn't really regulated in the sense of
Mhm.
um like how we're clinical social workers and
Yeah.
therapists and stuff. There's only two states, California and Florida, that kind of regulates it. So
Okay.
a lot of people can say they're a sex therapist, but they don't really have like the credentials. I mean, you can do the study,
Right.
and I'm not taking anything away from. There's definitely some people who are great sex therapists that don't have necessarily the credentials. But
Mhm.
I wanted to be credentialed
Legit.
and take it seriously. Yeah. Because I
Mhm.
want people to take me seriously. So
And not only that,
that's
you can pay for so many programs, like kind of like
mhm,
life coaching. And I'm a certified life coach too, but you can pay for programs because people take your money. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get everything that you need, especially when you're talking about someone that's been traumatized.
right.
You know,
Yeah.
it's a
Mhm.
difference from doing sex therapy for people that have low libido, things of that nature. But when you add trauma into that, that's another world.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
And definitely an obstacle, that you face. Yeah.
Hmm. And it's so funny because I too am a victim of childhood molestation and sexual
Mm,
violation. And when I talk to others, my goal is to be an example that you overcome, that you
yes.
really get your empowerment back because you were robbed. Especially when you're a young kid, you're
Hmm.
robbed through that violation. And part of what I do is help people get their power back. Like,
Right.
no, your violator cannot follow you the rest of your life. We're gonna free you
Mm-mm.
from that
Yeah.
thing, right? And so I know that you bring that into play as well. How do
Right.
you help clients really become comfortable just even addressing that sexual trauma piece? And then I'm gonna come back to the girl going, our girl parts be sleeping sometime.
Yes. 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 So definitely, because I am, a therapist and a sex therapist, I have to clarify with them which one are they coming to me for. Because if you're coming to me for just to get over the trauma, then that's a whole nother,
Mm-hmm.
avenue. And I don't like to address them necessarily at the same time. So sometimes if people are coming to me for sex therapy, I am going to ask the question, have you been through any sexual trauma? And if they haven't, then I may refer them out to do that part. And I work with them on the part of rediscovering themselves and reconnecting. But number one, the first thing that has to happen, they have to go get a physical. That's with any any client that I work with, because oftentimes there could be chemical imbalances or just medical things that could be interfering with
Right.
your, your libido or your sexual performance. And then from there, we just kind of dive in dissecting, like, do you have, what are your values? What do you think about sex? Because not only do you have sometimes the trauma that has happened, but what were your views? Like, how did you view sex growing up? What were you taught? And sometimes we have to do some myth busting, with that, or, just helping you record over, that tape, that those innuendos that you had about sex. And then the most important thing I feel like when I'm working with people who have experienced sexual trauma is learning your body. Because if you don't know how to turn yourself on, then you darn sure can't teach anyone else how to turn yourself on.
And let's talk about that a little bit more, because when we talk to women about, learning your body, and men too, learning what your touch is, what their sensitivity and things of that nature, I literally see women folding up and cringing. And it's like, but it's your body. How do you tell? So how do you help individuals break out of that fear of touching themselves?
So one thing, because I think people don't even like the word masturbation for whatever reason.
Right.
I mean,
because of the stigmas, the church played the stigma, society.
Right.
Yeah.
It's getting better. I think. So the sex coaching program that I went through, we like to call it self-cultivation, which I love, right?
I like that.
So with self-cultivation, I call myself a sensualist as well, right? So sensuality is engaging all 5 of your senses. So for me, when I know that I'm going to have a self-cultivation session, I start before I even get home or before I wake up, right? Whatever.
But it has to start before the actual act.
Yes.
We're going to teach some people tonight, because
most
people don't realize that you can't roll over and just have sex. It's mental. You got to start way before you say, let's jump into bed, because that's boring anyway. That's
And even with, I know I'm going away from your question, but I'll tie it all together.
No, that's fine. We'll tie it in.
Even with couples, right? I tell the woman, or vulva owners, that a lot of times we like to blame our partner, right? Because we're not having an orgasm or we're not getting what we need. First of all, do you know what you need? And then second of all, you have to use your voice and, state what it is that you need in a loving way, because sometimes we can be all, not saying things nicely, but you have to turn your own self on. If I know that I'm going to meet up with my lover, my partner, I already have my music on, driving in the car. I'm turning my own self on. Right? And I think that's important, that we put so much pressure on someone else to do something for us, for our body.
Right.
That's not.
But how can they own that when you have no idea what you need? You mentioned
exploration.
Exactly. You mentioned vulva owner. Now, I was there when you broke it down for the audience when we were at Laugh Out Loud Therapy. Can you break it down? Because one of the things that continues to surprise me is the number. Yeah, you should have brought her. I should have told you to bring her. But one of the things that always surprises me is the number of people who think that our area is one whole part. And see, you feel like me. No, it's not. So can you educate? I know you don't have her with you tonight. But can you educate others on understanding the terminology such as vulva owner?
Right. And
as
I
well as.
do
Mhm,
I do feel like we are seeing it being referred to by the correct term more, which is
mhm,
that whole area is your vulva.
right.
Most people call it their vagina, but it's
Mhm.
the vagina is actually the inner
It's a small
canal
canal.
part. Right, yes.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
the full thing is called vulva. And one thing I do want to say that I feel like it's so important when I was doing the forensic interviews with the children, teach your children the right terminology,
Yes.
especially, heaven forbid, we don't want any of our children to be violated. But if they have been, you want them to be able to advocate for themselves by saying what it really is. And
Right.
they shouldn't be shamed. I think that's how we start off with creating shame around our bodies is by not
Mhm.
even naming it what it is. We call it something else and you need to cover it up and all of that stuff. So
Exactly.
I feel like I keep getting off topic. But
No,
as you can see,
no,
I'm very
no.
passionate
Okay,
about all
so
of this.
we gonna go wherever the conversation leads, right? Because the truth is people are still going to get educated,
Okay.
understanding that we have to teach our little ones about their
Yes.
body parts so that they can effectively communicate when something's wrong. You
Hmm.
know, um, that's our duty to do that.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
because
yeah.
mom and them didn't do it for us doesn't mean we need to still carry that on. So we're going
Hmm.
where the conversation leads. So
Okay.
teaching these young people how to really name their body parts is very important. What
Hmm.
are some things that you could tell parents if we just do a little commercial real quick? What are some things that you can tell parents to do to help them fully understand how to help their children name the parts?
Okay. I love that question and I'm going to add a little bit onto it. So,
Hmm.
I don't want to say that it's wrong, right, to have little nicknames, but it is definitely important for them to know the correct name, that it
Right.
is their vulva or it is their penis. Um, and you can call it tutu or whatever else as well, but
Yeah.
when you are
Give them the
talking
real
to
names.
mommy, right, when you're telling mommy or daddy something hurts, they might say, "Oh, it's my tutu." No, that's your vulva, or no, that's your penis. And when
Hmm.
they talk to a medical provider as well, um, being able to use that terminology. Um, I think the other thing that is important to know as well, a lot of parents would definitely bring their children into the hospital because they caught them or observed them touching themselves.
Hmm. And they think
Um,
that something possessed their babies.
yes. And it's a very interesting conversation to have with parents because I guess we forget that we might have done that as well when we were that age,
Hmm.
but they're innocent. They don't know. They don't have any shame or guilt
Right.
about that their body. Like their body is their body, which is so beautiful, right? They're so freeing. I wish we
Hmm.
could all
Hmm.
stay in that frame of mind. Um, what is important to teach them is that it is appropriate places and times to do it. Like you don't need to be busting it wide open in the middle of the living room and the family's here, right?
Right. Right.
um,
Right.
and the reason why it's not inappropriate, like they respond to if something feels good, they're gonna keep on doing it. So
Right. Which is natural.
when right when we start to tell them no, don't do that, don't touch that, and cover it up and all this stuff, then we're starting to create this environment of shame and guilt and body shaming,
Right.
when we should be teaching them, mommy understands that that might feel good, but you can't, please don't do that right now. Like teach them how to go in the room, close the door, or just do it not in front of everyone in public, or
Hmm.
just having a conversation about what they're feeling in their body
Right.
would even
And
be,
a lot
I
of
know.
times. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I know it would be hard as a parent, right? If your 7 or 8-year-old came up and said, hey, I'm having this feeling or this sensation, right? But you want them to talk to you about that. And the great
Absolutely.
thing is that if you don't know how to respond, there's, counselors, therapists, educators, there's so many resources that
Mhm.
can help you navigate those conversations.
Would you say that parents fear when they bring their little ones in because they're touching themselves, the fear is that they've been touched? So instead of it all, possibly being a natural transition, they automatically assume there's been some abuse.
Yes. I would say
Yeah.
99% of the time that's what they think. And instead of um, just asking, well, I think they ask. A lot of times they may have asked, but
Mhm.
I think they just don't think that maybe the child can verbalize what has happened to them. Um,
Mhm.
but it's natural exploratory. If you think about it at the same time, in that kind of age range, kids play house and they,
Yeah.
mimic, what they're seeing. So
Mhm.
I think it's pretty
And it
natural.
really boils down to parents talking to their children, creating a
Hmm.
safe environment so their children can come and have a conversation with them. And that goes for any age of children,
Right.
the little ones all the way until, 19, 20 years old. I think they need to have that
Hmm.
effective open line of communication and not bashing them, making them feel
Right.
like something's wrong with them for having
Yeah.
conversations about sex or their bodies. I think if we can remove some of that stigma, we can have healthier conversations around sex. So yeah,
Right.
that's pretty powerful. So
Absolutely.
what are some taboos that you've encountered when, doing sex therapy workshops, individual, sessions, things of that nature?
I was thinking about that question when I saw
Mhm.
that. Yeah, I wrote it. One big thing that I wanted to touch on was that I if a person appears to be physically aroused, that means that they want to have sex. Meaning, if
Mhm.
my nipples are showing through my shirt, or I'm lubricated, or there's an erection, that automatically means that I want you to have sex with me. That
Mhm.
doesn't mean that.
It does not.
Because as you were saying earlier, for a lot of vulva owners and some penis owners, right, it's a mind body connection, right? So,
Mhm.
um, for a lot of vulva owners, if we're mad, you didn't make me mad because you didn't take the trash out or something, or you didn't meet my needs emotionally, but like you brush up against me, that doesn't mean my body won't react. But that
Right.
doesn't mean that I
Right.
want you to go ahead and push me up against the wall and take it either.
Right.
So
Right.
um which lies in consent, right?
Mhm.
And making
Mhm.
sure that you are still checking in with your partner or your lover to say, is this something that you want? And I think when
Mhm.
we talk about consent, sometimes people are afraid to interject consent, because consent should be
Mhm.
an ongoing conversation, right? Because just for instance, if you're in one position but you want to try something else or you want to incorporate something else, hopefully you've had that conversation before. But
Right.
if you haven't, you consent is ongoing, right? It's ever changing. It's
And
an ongoing conversation.
you don't have to be in positions that are uncomfortable or cause
Hmm.
you pain. You can switch the game. I hear, a lot of women in therapy talk about, feeling pain and afraid to say something to their partner. And it's like, no, that's still your body. You have a right to
Yes.
say, hey, hold on, that this isn't working for me. Let's try to
Hmm.
switch positions or whatever you need to say. But know that it's okay to say, yeah, this isn't working, because sex should not be so painful that you're not enjoying the
Right.
actual act. It should not be.
Yeah.
What are your
So
thoughts about that?
listen, I am on I am passionate about empowering people to not endure when it comes to sex.
Yeah.
Just don't.
It's
Long
not that fake it
suffering,
till you make it.
enduring. Yes, just stop. First of all, you're
When I
building
hear women say, "Well, I
false
just fake an
confidence.
orgasm."
Yeah, you're building false
Right.
confidence in someone else. And if they go be with someone else, they're going to try these same moves and they're going to meet the right person that's going to tell them, look, that ain't working. And they're going to be like, where everybody else is. Well, they lied.
That was me in college. And then at that point, I didn't have any decorum. It was just like, what are you doing?
Right.
Had no decorum. Didn't care if I hurt your feelings, but I knew enough about my body that, yeah, that's not going to work for me. That's put your clothes on. I was
Right.
ruled like that. Put your clothes on. But you have to, you said at the top of the interview, if you don't know your body, how can you tell someone else? If you don't trust you in the process of intimacy and intercourse, two different things, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
If you don't trust you with your own voice, right, you're going to be subject to whatever they feel like in the moment. That's not fair to you.
And you deserve pleasure. So don't endure.
Can you define pleasure for the people? Define pleasure.
And I think a lot of people think pleasure equates orgasm. And it doesn't. It doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this is TMI, but I had a full body orgasm without even being penetrated.
Yes. Yes.
Through tantra,
yes.
through breathing, through connection.
Mm-hmm.
So
mm-hmm.
It was probably the most intimate experience I've ever had. And there was no penetration, fully clothed in a room full of people at a conference.
Right.
But so intimacy, no, you asked me about pleasure. Pleasure doesn't
intimacy
equal
afterwards. Mm-hmm.
Pleasure doesn't equal orgasm. Pleasure it's almost like it can be euphoric, right? But it's
Mm-hmm.
what's pleasing. It's what you like, what you desire. It's having your needs met. Most importantly, having your needs met. And sometimes your needs are to be cuddled. Sometimes your needs are a hug. I think people underestimate a hug, right? Like just embracing with someone for 30 seconds and taking them in their full aura, and just because our society, the way we're set up is just busy. Like, how many times have you just brushed past your partner, kissed, hey, have a good night or whatever, and not just taking that time and to connect and look into each other's eyes and just eye gazing and then hugging.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's intimacy.
Yes. And
talking about pleasure.
I want to clear the air. Having moments of intimacy, including cuddling, holding hands, rubbing of the lower back, and things of that nature, does not always mean let's go.
No.
It truly is a connection, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I'm going to talk about this a little later in the conversation, when we get older, our bodies do some different stuff. So you may not be as, ready on the go as you were when you were younger. So when you talked about pleasure and you talked about intimacy, let's talk a little bit about intercourse. How do we get there?
Again, so intercourse, my belief is that it starts before, the actual penetration, right? So setting the tone, setting the mood, whether that's music, one important thing, hydration.
Yes. Why is hydration important? Break that down.
So hydration is important for both penis owners and vulva owners, right? One, it helps with
Mhm.
stamina, and
Mhm.
two, it helps with lubrication. Um,
Mhm.
I know, like, I haven't had enough water. I haven't been drinking enough water myself.
Mhm.
But if you just notice, I always challenge people to do, like, if you're not a person that drinks water consistently, take a
Mhm.
day or even two and try to just drink 64 ounces of water,
Mhm.
nothing else that day. You will notice that, like, your tongue, your secretions, like, everything just feels wetter, juicier.
Mhm.
And if you're very in tune with your body, you will even notice your vulva, your vagina as well, is more lubricated. So
Mhm.
lubrication is definitely important for vulva and penis owners. It helps with maintaining erection of penis owners
Mhm.
and maintaining the erection with the woman with or vulva owners with because the clitoris
Victoria.
is the
Mhm.
equivalent as the penis, right? So you want that to be
Talk
erect as
about it.
well.
Listen, okay. Most people don't understand anatomy. You can tell I get
Hmm.
excited when we talk about sex because I
Yeah.
just want people to be educated. Most people don't understand anatomy. They don't understand that literally in the womb, we start off having all the same body parts, and then there's a break-in depending
Right.
on the zygotes and all that kind of stuff. I won't go into all the
Hmm.
biology of it, but the same nerve
Nerves.
stimulation in the penis head is in the clitoris.
Right. Yes.
And
We
for the
actually have
life of you,
more. Yes.
right, right, because that is the most nerve
Sensitive.
holding area in our body. And when I hear women say, well, I don't like anyone touching my clitoris, it's like, well, do you know what you're missing?
Right.
Right.
Yes. It is the only organ designed for pleasure. So
Yes.
tap into it. Tap into it. Yes.
Don't be afraid to tap your clitoris. You heard
Mhm.
it from me. Don't be afraid to tap your
Tap
clitoris
it, rub it,
because
do
the
something.
tap it, rub it, caress it, whatever, because the truth is the same pleasure. And I want, especially vulva owners, I want you all to hear this, the same pleasure that you're giving that man when you provide oral sex. And don't be sending me no messages talking about, well, that's nasty. We don't do that. Stop lying. Everybody doing oral sex. Stop playing. We're not gonna do that. But the
We're not gonna
same
do that.
pleasure that he's getting from you providing that level of care, caressing, turn on for him,
Mhm.
that's the same thing that you're going to feel if he knows how to do it. Now, there's some brothers out there that don't.
Yes. There's
They
classes
need
for
some
it.
classes. Yeah.
There's no excuse.
And you have to be willing to teach what your body needs. But if you never touch your body, how are you going to tell
Mhm.
somebody how to turn you on? You said that at the top. You
Right.
got to know it.
Mhm.
And so when you talk about penal massaging is what I call it. When you're giving head, you do the penile massaging, then you doing clitoral stimulation and massaging. Why do you think so many people are afraid to even have those conversations?
So I'm gonna tell you another term that I love that I heard, right? My one of my mentors, Miss E. Michelle, she's a sex coach and she is the
Mhm.
owner of Pleasure Masters Institute. She calls them mouth
Okay.
hugs. I think that's so
Mm,
cute.
yes, yes, that is cute. That is cute.
So um I think that being in the Black community, that's the only one I can talk
Mhm.
about because that's where I'm from.
Right.
um it has we were taught that only like fast girls do that, or the nasty girls, or like the not saved girls did that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That was something that clear people did and not people of color. It's also pornography. We can add that into it too, right? Has created unrealistic expectations for some people when it comes to that. But it is definitely something that can be incorporated. And if it's not something that you're familiar with or you feel uncomfortable with, like anything, it's just like riding a bike. You can take lessons, you can learn, and maybe deep throating is not your thing, right? But there are different apparatus or tools that you can use that can help you with that if that's something that your partner may enjoy. Or you have a conversation with your partner and negotiate. Maybe that's not something that you can provide, right? So there's just, we have to, closed mouths don't get fed, right? So we have to, and that goes both ways. Sneeze.
Let it come through. Because and that's one of the things that I love about doing this podcast, because I don't try to hide our reality. If we have to sneeze, I have a tendency to cough because of asthma. It's going to be whatever it is. And it's still going to be good, because our truth is everything that I do has to be an authentic flavor, right? Because if it's not authentic, I cannot process it. I can't be a part of it. So let's talk about that a little bit. I'm going to correlate you needing to sneeze and holding it to a moment of intercourse. And people either prematurely ejaculating, and women, yes, you can ejaculate. Let me put that. Oh my goodness, help. Because so many people think, well, women they don't ejaculate. Really? Then we probably need to help you get some lessons in or understanding. But oftentimes
drink some water.
Period. Keep yourself hydrated. Get your mind in the right space so that you can actually enjoy all the facets of intimacy. But when you think about premature ejaculations, our bodies evolving, us trying to hold on when we can't, things of that nature, how do you help people when they come in specifically for sex therapy, libido issues, concerns of premature ejaculation, concerns of dryness? Can you talk a little bit about that?
So I'll work backwards. Dryness. So hydration, first of all. But for some reason, well, I'm not gonna say that, because I love the song WAP and all these other songs that are bringing more attention to me, women empowerment and us feeling comfortable with our bodies and saying what pleases us, right? But everybody don't have WAP. And sometimes even when you drink water, and if you have certain medical conditions, or if you are perimenopausal or going through menopause, those are times when your lady parts might be a little bit drier. It is okay to use lubrication. It's okay. It's okay. I think you should have it by the bed anyways, because you might have a long session that right, that may require it. So because I personally don't think some people like to use their saliva, and that's not hygienically correct, right? It can mess up your pH, and then you have a whole other problem.
Especially if they're not taking care of their mouths. You can't be having yuck mouth and then
Some people don't even, well, they say you shouldn't even really like go and like vigorously brush your teeth anyways, right? Before you have intercourse, because then you open up all of those pores inside your mouth. So
Yeah.
So that was lubrication, and then you said erectile, no,
Yeah.
premature ejaculation.
Libido and premature ejaculation. Mm-hmm.
So premature ejaculation um, can sometimes be a little bit tricky. I For that, I typically work with them on mindfulness
Okay.
and being present, right? Because a lot of times they might be just overly excited. Sometimes, though, and this is the reason why it's important to get the physical, right? To make
Mm-hmm.
sure there's nothing else going on that's making,
Right.
causing or contributing to that happening. But helping them stay present, because a lot of times they are just in the mind frame of getting to the end instead of just
Mm-hmm.
being present and enjoying and like looking at your partner and the curves and all of this, the different things that are going on around you, as opposed
Right.
to I'm trying to get to this end so I can go to sleep,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Hurry up and get done. Yeah.
Yes. Or I just want to hurry up and get to that euphoric feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a good feeling. So
I mean, listen, we all have been in a place where we had 10 minutes for that quickie that has its place, but also having those loving moments that you can take that moment, do the gazing, that inner core connecting presence, right? In
yeah,
that. And so that is very important
yeah.
to understand the differences. Every session can't be 10 minutes.
Mm-mm.
You got to
No.
put some work in.
And I mean, quiet is kept as a vulva owner. I don't want 20, 30 minutes all the time either. So
Mm-hmm.
I think one other thing that is truly important as well, that I want to say is, if you have a partner that premature ejaculates or comes faster than what you like, right? Don't shame them. Um,
Yes.
it's definitely worth having a conversation about, because if it's a problem for you because you're not getting to the place that you want to be, then just because that person has had their climax doesn't mean that they can't still engage to get you where you need to
Mm-hmm.
be. And then most importantly, after you are both satisfied or got what you need out of it, it is important to connect, which ties the whole intimacy thing in aftercare, right? So the
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
aftercare is, for me, aftercare is going to get me a warm rag,
Yes.
right? So I
Yes.
can clean myself up.
Let's clean this up and then we can talk.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Mm-hmm.
talking afterwards, or holding
Mm-hmm.
that person, gazing in their eyes, rubbing their back, um, fixing them something to eat. All of those things are important. And I think we sometimes neglect that part of
Mm-hmm.
intimacy, and the whole foreplay or intercourse, aftercare, all of those things are important in the aspect of intimacy.
Right, right, right. And really, being able to have real conversations with your partner about what it takes to please you as we get older. And what I'm finding though is individuals as young as they're in their 30s are having premature ejaculation issues, um, vaginal dryness issues, loss of even the desire for intimacy.
Mhm.
What would you say to individuals after they've gone through and had a medical checkup and recognized that it's not really a medical situation, right? But it is a situation where something happened that's really impacting them. What would you say to encourage them to really seek help?
Um, I think the first thing, I would just want to have a conversation about what is their expectations when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to intimacy and sex. Um, because we are in a society that everything is in your face, right? When you think about,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Instagram or, just everything is not authentic, right?
Yes.
So,
That in itself just a whole nother session that we have to do because it's just not authentic.
right, it's not authentic, right? So I think it's important to help them kind of identify what their expectations is when it comes to sex and intimacy. And
Mm-hmm.
then also that mindfulness piece as well, because we are in such a microwave. I want it now. I want, whatever right now, like slowing
Yeah.
down and being present in that moment as well is definitely important. And also being able to, uh, being able to discover your body, being mindful,
Mm-hmm.
and then I forgot what other one I was going to say was so important.
It'll come back. It'll come back. Because if it's important, it'll come back up.
Yeah.
While we're waiting for that thought to come back in, how important is it for not even just sex, but for intimate relationships mentally on your mental health? How important is that?
Whew. Very important. I know this might ruffle some church folks' feathers, right? But God created our bodies, right, for us to
Period.
experience pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
So we are
Well, we
doing
wouldn't
a
have the
disservice.
parts. We just wouldn't have the parts. Anyway, don't get me on that soapbox because we'll do a whole nother hour on that one. Because really,
Right. So um allow yourself to feel, allow yourself to experience pleasure. I was something you said earlier, when we were talking about the clitoris, and I feel like for a lot of my I would say entrepreneurial or um, vulva owners that are like in high powered or like
mm-hmm.
supervisory role. One of the reasons why I feel like they struggle with the whole orgasm thing and people touching her because they don't want to lose control.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's a
Mm-hmm.
control thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that also comes into play with people who have experienced sexual trauma or any kind of trauma, right? They've worked so
Right.
hard to get control of their emotions, to get control of their body, to gain all of this back. And so if I allow someone to touch me in a pleasing way, I don't know how I'm going to react.
Right. Right.
Like, is my hair going to be okay? Am I going to scream? Am I going to be too loud? Instead of just letting it go, they might squirt too. So
Right. And the
you gotta
truth
let
is, it
everything
just
go.
kind of just free yourself, free your
Yeah.
mind, free your body, right? So that you can actually enjoy. And the truth is when you have that human touch, when you allow yourself the freedom to engage in pleasurable moments, whether it is self-cultivating, self-pleasure, or with a partner, you're giving yourself a release. There is a neurological function associated with that release. It does reduce stress and anxiety and
Yeah.
depression. It rewards you with feelings of euphoria. So tell me this, Tiffany, how can people reach you? And I need to stop for a second. I need the link for the t-shirt because I'm going to have me one.
Okay. I'm gonna send you one.
Oh, okay. All
Yeah.
right. But
My
I
gift to
got to
you.
give back. I appreciate that. But, I'll buy one so that I can bless somebody else with it too.
Okay.
Because self care is sexy. So
It is.
tell us how we can reach you, how individuals, if they have more questions, I know we can't get it all in this 45 to 50 minutes. If they
Mm-hmm.
have questions, how can they reach you?
So the best way to reach me is social media, it is at Soul Solutions GA. On Facebook, and then on Instagram is Soul Solutions _GA. I post daily. Actually, on Fridays, I post different sexual positions. So today's Freaky Friday. So check my Facebook out or Instagram for whatever the Freaky Friday position is today. I don't remember what it is today. And then my website is soulsolutionsga.com, and email is help@soulsolutionsga.com.
Love it, love it, love it. And we'll make sure that we have all of the contact information on the end of this session in this screen. I cannot wait for this session to air. Thank you so much for helping educating us. Thank you for allowing me to be free enough to be engaged in the conversation, because sex is a really, really beautiful topic for me to help help people to really free themselves and free their minds. It truly was a pleasure. I'm sure we'll have to do this again so that we can just go a little deeper, because I really want to talk about as we evolve in our age groups and different things like that, our bodies changes. So I really want you to come back and we engage in that conversation, because that's going to help some of the older generation to really understand how to still get levels of pleasure. So thank you again. It's truly been a pleasure. You all check out Authentically Peculiar with Marcia on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube, all of those streaming apps. You know how to find me on Authentically Peculiar with Marcia on all of the social media pages and all of that good stuff. Until next time, remember, remain authentic, be true to yourself, and we'll see you soon. Take good care.